Hey, Ron.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Ron, the Eagles play a lot of 12 and 13 personnel this season, and they're throwing a lot out of it very successfully. What matchup problems does that present for a defense?
Well, you got to look at the personnel that they have. Who's their 12? Who's their 13? And that's the thing you've got to adjust for because again, their tight ends are solid football players. They're good route runners. They got good quickness, good speed, good hands, and they most certainly can present matchup problems. And that's pretty much what they're banking on. As you look at them.
Ryder, coming off a tough loss last week in Washington, what were some of the things that seemed to go well the week before, didn't go as well, particularly on the offensive end this past week?
Well, the biggest thing and the biggest problem we have is we turned the ball over 3 times in the first half. Can't win a football game if you do that. That's the truth of the matter. I mean, again, it counted for 10 of their points, and the margin of victory was like 5 points or something like that. So, at the end of the day, you just can't turn the football over.
Ron, what has Torrey Smith brought to your team?
Tell you what, Torrey's been a heck of an addition to our football team. He's got great speed, and as you get a chance to watch last week's game, he really showed up big for us and did some really good things. And I'm just really excited about him. He's a good blocker, blocks very well on the second level for us. He's been a good route runner. He's a good deep ball threat for us. He's been that kind of guy, and then he's been a good locker room guy. He really fits in very well with our guys.
Ron, obviously it was a close game last year. What do you remember most about the loss to the Eagles last year on Thursday night?
Well, pretty much the same thing I just said about the loss the other night, is that you just can't turn the ball over. We turned the ball over twice to them in the red zone, and unfortunately that accounted for 14 of their points. So, we got to protect the football better. And again, they're a very good football team. And I'll tell you, I really like their quarterback. I think Carson Wentz is one of the true young and upcoming stars in this league.
Ron, Jason Peters is a little banged up, but it looks like he's going to play. You've seen him for many, many years. What do you make of him at 36 when you watch the film?
Good football player. I mean, that's the truth of the matter. The guy's just been a dominant player, a dominant force at left tackle for them. And, he's a guy that's going to compete, battle. He's a veteran, savvy veteran guy that's going to, do everything he can to protect his quarterback and to open up the running lanes.
Hey, if I could ask about another older guy, you have Mike Adams in your secondary. What has he kind of meant for you the past season and a half?
Well, the one thing Mike's become for us, we lost Kirk Coleman to free agency, but the biggest thing he's done a great job for us really has been just his consistency back there, the way he's kind of taken over as that group's leader. Those guys have really kind of come together and have rallied around him as our leader. So we're pretty excited about what he brings to the table.
Norv is using Cam a lot as a runner, designed runs, zone reads. In the past, Cam's taken a beating at times. Was there any reluctance on your part to have him carry the ball this much?
Well, you got to look at the things that we're doing and how we're doing them. I mean, one of the things that Cam says is he prefers to run the ball because at least he knows where the hits are coming from. The one thing he says is, when he's sitting in the pockets, when he takes some of the bigger hits, with the exception of, when he slides and gets hit. That's probably the only time I've really ever seen him take a hit.
Hey, Ron, Doug Peterson's gotten a lot of attention during this past year for being aggressive on fourth downs. It's something you've done throughout your coaching career, got a nickname for it. What's kind of the background for your philosophy there? Why have you been as aggressive as you've been?
It's interesting is, I think it's really about circumstance because a lot of times, that some of the fourth downs that I've gone, I've really been more near the end of the game, and it's one of those things where if you can convert, you pretty much can put the game away, and that's probably then the biggest thing that I've been able to do. And I'll say this too, with the with the success we've had, obviously we've had some failures because early in my career I was 3-16 in games decided by 3 points or less, and probably the biggest thing that I need to get corrected more than anything else really is the timing of it. When's the best time to use it? We're like Doug, and then we've been looking at the analytics of fourth down for a long time.
Hey Ron, DJ Moore is a Philly kid. What have you seen out of him as a rookie, and how have you seen him bounce back from his game on Sunday?
He's bounced back very well. I was asked a question after his second fumble, and they asked me, well, you got to discipline him or punish him or what have you. And I said, no. I said the young man's part of what we're trying to do for now and the future. And the only way for him to grow and develop is to keep him on the field and keep going with him. I mean, the young man is an impressive person. He's also a very good football player, and I think as he grows and develops, he's going to be a guy that can be a big part of what we're doing now and in the future. So again, to me, just the young man's going to continue to grow, and I think he can become a very explosive player.
Ron, how big of a factor was it in the game with the Eagles last year when Kuechly went down? I mean, he does a lot of stuff for you guys, and what's his value back there?
Well, I mean, again, he's quarterback of our defense. I mean, the guy's a phenomenal football player. He's been league defensive MVP because he's that type of football player. And, just again, you hate to see anybody get hurt and have them not play. And again, I know you guys went through it with losing Carson, and you guys are fortunate Nick Foles stepped up and did some good things for you guys. So, for us, we had a tough one with Luke's injury, and we had a good young player that that tried to fill in, and he did an admirable job. But at the end of the day, Luke Kuechly's special.
Ron, Christian McCaffrey's yards per carry this year is so much better than what it was last season. What's going on there? What did something he did in the offseason, something you guys did up front?
I think a lot of it had to do with last year was his rookie year, and we were still trying to figure out how to use this guy to the best of his abilities. I think now that we've had over a year under our belt, I think especially with Norv has a good understanding, a good feel for what he can do with this guy. I mean, it's interesting because a lot of people forget or don't realize that but at one time, Norv had LT, Norv had Emmitt Smith, Norv had Darren Sproles. I mean, he had these types of backs with that type of ability, and hopefully Christian can continue to grow in what we're trying to do.
Speaking of Darren Sproles, that's a comparison that several Eagles made when talking about McCaffrey. Do you see that? You've coached against Darren quite a bit.
Because first of all, Darren's a heck of a young man, and so is Christian. But both of them are very good football players. They study the game. They work hard at the game. Darren's a threat out of the backfield. Darren can run the ball pretty well inside. I don't think people realize it or recognize it, but from my recollection, I've always believed Darren was a terrific inside runner, and he's very, very scary out of the backfield.
What have you noticed out of Carson since you last saw him on film? Any changes or evolution to his game that you picked up on?
No, I thought he was a very good quarterback last year. I think he's a very good quarterback this year. I don't think he's changed his style. He's still an aggressive football player. You still see him tuck and run when he has to. He doesn't go down easy. He fights for everything. I mean, I think is really, like I said, I think he's going to be one of the really good ones coming up in this league.
You guys have had a lot of injuries along the offensive line. How have those replacements handled picking up pressure?
I think they've done a nice job. They really have, and I think a lot of it has to do with the coaching. I think, what John Matsko and Travell Wharton have done with those young guys and done with the new guys that we've brought in has been solid. I mean, these guys have done a great job. They communicate very well. And I'm just excited that we have we've got that kind of combination in the locker room and at the position.
Ron, one of the areas where you haven't had a lot of success is big plays down the field. I think there's only one 40-plus yard reception on the season. Obviously, Cam has a big arm and is willing to throw it down the field. So what would you attribute the lack of the big plays to?
Well, I think we've missed a couple of them. We've overthrown them. On one of them, Cam got his arm hit, and the ball fluttered, unfortunately. But, quite honestly, I think, again, it's a quarterback decision, and he's reading certain things as he's taking it. I mean, we've been fortunate. We're 3-2 right now. We've lost 2 close games that we could have won. And when he's had to throw big, he's thrown big. He's had big days. So I think too much is being made of it as far as those things are concerned. Because again, if he's controlling it, he's completing as many passes as he is. He's got a good percentage right now, completion percentage. I mean, I have no concerns about that.
Ron, Cam, I think already has 20 rushing first downs. I think he had 6 last week against Washington. How big is it to have a quarterback that can move the chains, particularly on third down and like that?
Well, the biggest thing is we want to make sure he's doing it judiciously. We don't want him to overexpose himself. But, again, I think when he sees a running lane, he'll take it, especially the big thing we've got to do is we've got to be good on first and second down. When you get into those 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4 situations and the quarterback becomes a weapon. I mean, because usually in those tight windows, people play a little bit tighter and they tend to play a little bit more man, or they tend to to overcover in their zones, and what they do is they open up a running seam, and he'll take it.
Ron, this game last year really put the Eagles on the map. Doug said it's going to take a complete performance, and it's a good test for them. How do you view this game for your team at where you are in your season? How important is this game this week for you guys?
Well, it's very important. I mean, again, it's an NFC game. It's against the defending Super Bowl champions. That's for darn sure. So that's what makes it important. I mean, it really does. Because again, that old saying, if you want to be the champs, you got to be able to beat the champs. And that's the truth. They're a good football team. They're very well coached. And again, it is a challenge. And I echo his sentiments. This is a game that can tell you a lot about yourselves. I mean, last week we found something out about ourselves that, we dug a hole and we almost came back. And again, that means, we have that type of potential. We just got to close the door on it.
Bradbury has a lot of size at cornerback, and he's might go up against Alshon. How beneficial is it to have a corner with that size when you're going up against a guy who can go up and get it?
Well, it is very beneficial. I mean, again, you've got to be able to run. I mean, I look at some of the guys they got over there, and I'll tell you, one of the guys that I've always been very impressed with is watching Ronald Darby. I mean, he does a solid job, and again, you have corners that can do those things. I mean, Jalen Mills, he fights his butt off out there. I mean, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for those kinds of players that can make plays, that can do things. So again, you try to find those type. Well, we were fortunate. We found one in James, and we were able to draft him and develop it. And he's still learning and growing, and I think he can be a very good one in this league. But he's still got a little bit of ways to go.
Hey Ron, what are some of the realities for head coaches and their teams coming off of a Super Bowl year? Especially early on. What are some of the things that you have to kind of fight through?
Well, the biggest thing you got to fight through is the expectations, and that's the truth of the matter. I think everybody has to understand that there's a tremendous amount of pressure and expectations. Once you've won, especially in a city like Philadelphia, I was fortunate enough to be there for 5 years with Andy, and I know what the expectations are, and I can imagine what they are for Doug and his team. So that's probably the biggest thing. I mean, you're going to get everybody's best shot, and that's just kind of the way it is, and I think they've handled it very well.
And you had in 15, you went in 15-1, and the next year was a bit of a down year. What's your remembrance of that, and how much of that is kind of attributed to the long season prior?
Well, again, I think the difference between us and them, obviously, they won it, we didn't. We had to open up and basically relive the Super Bowl because we opened up the regular season playing Denver in Denver, and we had a chance to win, and we didn't. We had a number of injuries that we didn't bounce back from very well. And so it was a tough year, and we learned a lot of lessons from it, and we were able to bounce back the next year, get back in the playoffs. So, I think, again, for every team it's going to be different, and for them it's going to be different. I mean, they have to handle it to the best of their abilities, and nobody else can tell them but them.
Hey, Ron, you mentioned your time here, having coached on both sides. What makes Philly a tough place for opponents to come in and beat the Eagles in?
Well, I think kind of the tone that Andy set when he got here, got to Philadelphia, I think was very good, and it really was a business-like atmosphere. It really was about defending the turf, and again, I look at some of the things that they do, and I think Doug has done a terrific job. I really do. In fact, Doug was one of the guys that help us lay the cornerstones, and so it's kind of neat that he's gotten that opportunity to be back there.
Thanks,
Thank you
Ron.
very much, Ron.
Take care. Hey, guys.